This majestic stone steeple collapsed out of the blue on a random Thursday afternoon. I managed to get hold of the high-resolution security footage, which delivers valuable insight into the increasing lean of the steeple up until its eventual collapse. It provided measurements of the progressive tilt. And what warning signs were there that it was teetering? It's both unsettling and fascinating. The steeple of the First Congregational Church in New London, Connecticut, had a lean ever since it was built, and those with a keen eye would have noticed its subtle but ominous tilt. A little more than 2.5 months ago, at 1:30 p.m. on January 25th, it fell, destroying much of the building. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. To me, the situation resembles a recurring pattern, a client opting for a builder offering a price too low and paying the cost in compromised construction. In this case, the resultant mortal weakness took 173 years to reveal itself. Leaning architecture stirs emotions of both apprehension and wonderment. Humans have always found it irresistible to build high and tall, fueled by competition, vanity, and the challenge of pushing the limits of engineering. Sometimes they are askew by design. This towering steeple, soaring at 150 feet high, claimed the victory as the tallest in town. It was a lot taller than the length of the church. Some tall, older buildings have extreme leans, which are famous worldwide and large drivers of tourism. Take, for instance, the Twin Towers of Bologna. They are comically lopsided and a phenomenal 910 years old. The shorter one has the more extreme gravity-defying tilt of 4.4 degrees. In the 14th century, it was shortened as its lean had become too dangerous. Also in Italy is the most famous of all, the Pisa Bell Tower, which leant as much as 5.5 degrees 30 years ago, has been straightened by engineers to 3.9. Completed in 1372, it has been standing for a staggering 650 years. This crooked spire in Chesterfield, England, is as old as Pisa, and its decidedly wonky look has made it a beloved local icon. So it is puzzling that this steeple, merely tilted at a slight 1 degree angle, was the one to fall. It was much younger, at 173 years old. Its base was straight and vertical. The tilt only began part the way up, which implies a weak point where the tilt started. In this 1930s image, it shows up as approximately 0.6 degrees. This collapse would not have been a surprise to its original architect, Leopold Eidtlitz, who in a letter back in 1851 issued a stern warning to the church about the unstable steeple. He wrote, "The walls of the main tower of your church have parted in several places, in consequence of defective masonry and unequal settling produced by want of sufficient bond in the walls and the hurried erection of the steeple." He advised that the spire be taken down and rebuilt by someone more competent. The church voted to take no action. The unequal settling he talks about implies it was tilting at completion, and I believe this bad masonry is the reason for the collapse. Let's look closer at the church and its layout and composition. It was modeled from a ground plan and the Google 3D mesh, and from photographs. The two main components were the 3 entry towers and the main church volume. The structure was load-bearing granite stonework and masonry. Ornate roof trusses supported a slate roof over the sanctuary. The main space had an elevated seating gallery, which also contained the organ against the steeple wall. We will look closer at the organ and how it may have played a part. The main entrance was at the base of the steeple. The side towers contained stairwells accessing the upper seating area. They were also the way to reach the bells and clocks. The stairs to the steeple were accessed from balconies on either side. The belfry and clock room had wooden frame floors. They were reached by ladders and timber platforms. The stone walls of the tower started out thick at the base and progressively thinned out as it rose to provide structure where it was needed lower down while simultaneously reducing the load. The church did have a basement, but I could find no detail on its extent, so it's not shown in the model. But there is no reason to think that the basement contributed to the collapse because all clues in the video evidence point to a failure higher up, and the foundations were securely onto bedrock. Much of the granite was quarried on site. The upper parts of the spire around the louvers of the belfry and the clocks have been modelled in greater detail. These features are clearly visible in the security video, providing more cross-reference points to accurately align the model with the motion seen in the video. Additionally, we can appreciate the intricate elegance of the stonework. Steeples like this are organized with a satisfying geometry ordered in eighths. The symmetry mirrors along 3 axes to complete a full rotation of the square plan form. Thanks to the Isaac Middle School, I have got hold of the original footage that captured the collapse on security video. The widely seen initial collapse footage was fuzzy and shaky. Recorded via a cell phone capturing a computer monitor, it suffered from camera wobble, keystone distortion, and unsynchronized frames, impeding precise measurement and analysis. With the benefit of the sharper imagery, it was possible to extract valuable measurements of the tilt angle. Plus, the video includes the crucial 24 minutes leading up to the collapse, allowing for the tracking of small changes of the lean. In addition, I was provided with still images spanning the 10 days before. This is the process of tracking the steeple movements. The 3D model had to be precisely aligned with the video. The viewpoint of the camera had to be matched and the fisheye distortion of the lens replicated. For the most accurate tilt measurements, it was essential that the image and the model had the same horizontal alignment. The post office on the left and the buildings on the other extreme of the image were aligned to ensure the correct calibration. The tilt seen in the security video was very carefully matched frame by frame to the 3D model to recreate the increasing tilt. This is the progression according to my measurements. The gold sphere is the best place to illustrate the progressive angle of lean over time because the movement is most pronounced at the top. On a side note, this type of ball on a spike is found all over Prague, which was where the architect grew up and drew his inspiration. I don't think the spire was ever perfectly vertical. The unequal settling Eidtlitz spoke of implies it was already tilting at construction. My guess is the original lean was similar to the 0.6 degrees we see in the 1930s image. By 2019, the tilt was about 1 degree according to measurements taken from a Google 3D mesh and a 2014 photograph. In the last 4 years, it moved another 15 inches, with the majority of this movement likely occurring recently. In the 10 days leading up to the collapse, there was a further roughly 17 inches of movement. In the last 24 minutes, it leaned over by a further 7 inches. Here it is sped up. And in the final 1.7 seconds, the ball edged over by 19 inches before it reached its tipping point. The movement was exponential, imperceptible at first, and quickening towards the end. The roof and stone were separate structures and independent. This is clear when we see how the roof stayed up for a moment while the stonework was dropping. The timber roof shows remarkable strength and only gave way when crushed by the much heavier stones. During the fall, the tip of the spire cracked loose and fell separately. So how did it fail? The point of rotation or fulcrum is here. It was high up the steeple and not at ground level. This was also the height at which the tilt began. This is why I believe it was a masonry failure. First, there is the distinct rotation, followed by the vertical drop once the base of the tower gives way. I believe the pocket of masonry with poor bond was in the vicinity of the belfry stairs. We see no clear signs of compromised stonework in the photographs of the outside wall. This is not altogether surprising, considering that the likely weakness was below the roof line and the fulcrum. Were the building owners aware that their steeple was so precarious and unstable? In 2011, the previous congregation commissioned a condition assessment study prepared by a firm of architects and engineers, which contains additional clues to the point of failure. Shockingly, the report declared, by all visible accounts, the tower is structurally sound. The firm employed electrical, AC, and plumbing engineers, but no structural. So it is odd that they declared this tower structurally safe. This would surely have put the church at ease, but an architect is not qualified to make such structural determinations. The report included this troubling photo of the stairs to the bellroom. The stone treads had heaved down the center in this aggressive and very worrying manner. This points to the primary structure having shifted in a significant manner, something a structural engineer should have investigated further to determine how severely the primary structure was compromised, particularly because the tower had a tilt. The report also said, the areas in greatest need of repair are the floors, walls, and ceilings on the narthex upper floor, which was severely damaged by prolonged water damage, likely due to leaking roofs at the tower balconies. A leak to this type of flat roof can be particularly stubborn and notoriously difficult to locate and fix. These long-standing leaks could be what further degraded the mortar bonds in the area of shoddy construction the original architect was so concerned about, weakening it to the point of complete failure. Unable to afford the costly repairs, in 2015, the church sold the building to the current owners, Engaging Heaven Ministries, who finally had the roof fixed. No doubt, this 2011 report will be closely scrutinized by the insurers because it likely put the building owner unrealistically at ease and may have reduced the premiums. An organist described seeing tremendous water damage along with buckling door frames. It's possible a crumbling wall could have been obscured behind the organ, so nobody noticed to raise the alarm. All these issues are in the general area of the heaved stairs and the balcony and roof leaks. Unequal settlement of the masonry in this spot would have induced the tilt. Eidtlitz added anchor ties in 1851, and in his words, they were there to stay the progress of the parting of the walls. He noted the ties were a temporary solution. All the anchor ties were added soon after construction. In this photo from the 1860s, we see all the same tie rods that were in place when it collapsed. It's quite possible that one or more of the rods or anchor plates could have rusted through and contributed towards the collapse. As the stones shifted and dislodged, the lean would have increased, shifting yet more load onto the already weakened section. Just like the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, there came the moment where just one more stone shifted and it all gave way at once. This historic landmark tumbled into a pile of stones and wood, with a huge dust cloud which travelled down the streets. The sound was described as not so much as a boom, but rather as a cascade of something heavy or as a rumble of thunder. The church administrator was working here in the annex. She heard a whoosh and carried on working till she was told the church had fallen down. She was the only occupant and was uninjured. The balance of the structure remained standing, which tells it was strong and well built, and the failure came from a localized area of poorly and hurriedly constructed stones. The city condemned what was left standing, and within a week the demolitions were complete. With such an unexpected collapse, you may ask what warning signs there were. Somebody who was admiring the church earlier that morning saw large stress cracks in the granite blocks on the entrance facade, as well as pieces of stone lying on the ground. 5 hours later, it was a pile of rubble. The message is we can't assume the structure will be shouting out its distress, which was the same in the completely unexpected collapse of the Surfside condo in Florida, which I have made videos about. Sometimes there are only subtle clues. And the other troubling lesson is experts can miss these clues. In this case, monitoring of the steeple would have detected the accelerating lean and called attention to its dire situation. As historic structures age and the financial resources of churches dwindle, this problem is going to compound. The cost of preserving history will surely fall increasingly on the ratepayer. That or our history will slowly crumble. The iconic towers, like those in Pisa and Bologna, suffer from foundation failures, and there are now efforts to stabilize one of the towers in Bologna. The First Congregational is different because it was founded securely onto bedrock. This church was an otherwise robust structure except for localized weak masonry under the heavy teetering steeple. A tilt is not in itself a sign something is going to fall, but it does mean it must be checked out by someone with expert knowledge. The city has commissioned an investigation into this collapse. They have access to all the detailed information, and we look forward to their findings in the final report. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.